Welcome in. Good morning, Gray and Shine. How are you? Welcome in. Endless Treasure, City Girl Situation. Barbara Thu is here. Fourth Have is here. Mina is here. Bruce Vintage. Welcome. So, everyone, answer my poll question. And if you choose other, put it in chat with a question mark. So, welcome in. Welcome in. You finally woke up early enough to watch. Awesome. Yeah, there's a couple of people that I would love to be in their shows more often, but they're East Coast, I'm Mountain Time, and it just never happens. Because they're on at like 5, which is 7 their time, and I just don't get up early enough. So everyone answer my poll question, please. And if you choose other, put it in the chat with a question mark so it's bold. And just type other and then your issue and then question mark so it shows up bold. Welcome in, everybody. So far, getting viewers and buyers is number one, which I suspected. And shipping is always an issue for some people. Welcome. Angel, good morning. Pickle Pie, welcome. Chrissy Woo is here. Make Love is here. Good morning. Jan is here. Welcome. So yeah, answer that question. Trends Corner, welcome in. So not surprised that getting viewers and buyers is number one. And I wish I had the magical answer, but I'm going to guide you for some places for some things to do for homework and some things to get the juices flowing as far as thinking about what can you do to improve getting viewers and buyers in your shows. Welcome in, Mark and Lila. Thanks for joining. Everybody answer that poll question that I have there. Not everyone has answered. So if you're not a seller yet, maybe it's not applicable. But yeah, anyone that has had shows, please answer the poll question so that we know where people are at. All right, so let's talk about what can you do since getting viewers and buyers is still at overwhelmingly top concern. So let's look at a couple of things. First of all, homework. I want you to go to the Whatnot YouTube channel, which is in the show notes. So they've repositioned show notes so you can actually see it while polls are going on, I think. At least on iPhone they did. Although on my iPad it's right above an arrow. So in the show notes, the second starred bullet, and I'll put it in chat. But the second starred bullet in the show notes is the YouTube account, the official YouTube account, and I'm putting it in show notes or in the chat, sorry. So Whatnot app. And you need to type in the ampersand when you go to YouTube to find it. So type in ampersand Whatnot app when you go to YouTube, and you'll find the official Whatnot app YouTube account. And in that account, see this thing that I just pinned is the Whatnot seller interview with Colleen, who is a Whatnot product manager. Kenny interviewed her on Whatnot sellers, and she gave a lot of insight into how the algorithms work to favor your shows. So in other words, she talked a lot about what do you need to do to make sure the algorithms favor, that you put you higher up in search for people to find your show. Okay. So if you haven't already gone and watched that interview, so it's a video on the YouTube account that they put in there, and that's what the cover looks like. So it's the interview he did with Colleen. So go and watch that. Welcome in, Trey Wu and KK Lynn. Welcome. So go watch that without disclosing like specifics, because companies keep, exactly how they do their algorithms a little bit close to the vest. She told you the things that you need to do to make sure that you are getting the best exposure you can with the algorithms and how they work. Okay. So that's the first thing that you need to do. Second thing you need to do is you need to um, use this guide to really do some deep thinking about how you do your shows and what you can do better to improve your shows to make sure people want to come and want to stay in your shows. So the 5 F's. Yes, so it's in the chat. It's also in the show notes, but in the chat, I typed in the name of the YouTube account for Whatnot. Let me go to YouTube and I'll show you. So just open YouTube on your device or on your TV or whatever, and then type in search the ampersand and then Whatnot app. So Whatnot app, and then hit search. And it's going to come up exactly like that. See how that was just sandwiched in between some other content? That's the official Whatnot app right there. The one with the logo in front of it. So tap that. And then that video of him interviewing Colleen, just scroll over a little ways. And here it is right here. It's this one with her picture right there. Okay, and that's the one that you need to watch. Okay. And the reason I have you type the ampersand in is because otherwise because there's tons of Whatnot content out on YouTube of other people making videos, but you want to find this exact Whatnot account, which is the official Whatnot app account on YouTube. So make sure you go to the right place. You are welcome. All right. So, and then, yes, that thing that I have pinned right now, make sure you get a screenshot of it. So I have it pinned on the screen. Just tap the picture. So just tap the picture of it, tap it again, make it big, and take a nice screenshot of that. And then refer to it out of your photos and really do some deep thinking about what can you do to make sure that you're following these 5 F's, because that really does make a huge difference to make sure you're doing all 5 of them consistently. All right, and then next, also review, if you haven't screenshotted and reviewed this before, my top 10 tips. Just go over it. So I just pinned that again, just tap it again, make it big, take a screenshot. These are just all the things that you need to be doing just on a basic level. And these are really basic things. Good morning, Lynn's Vintage Villa. How are you today? So these are really basic things. Number one, and Colleen actually talks about this in that interview. Number one, schedule shows. That seems so duh, right? But still, I see lots of new sellers who have a show scheduled. They have the show and they don't have any additional shows scheduled for people to bookmark for the next time. You should have a minimum of 10 shows on your schedule at all times so that people are seeing those coming up. People are seeing them on your schedule when you're live and bookmarking them. And people are going into those future shows to see what you have to offer. You should always have as many as shows as you think you can possibly have scheduled. You can always move the time, the day a little bit if you need to. Okay. But if you already know that you're going to go live on a certain day of the week at a certain time, you kind of, got a schedule that you're going to work on. Why wouldn't you have all those shows already scheduled? That is the number one thing you need to do. And then number two is go live. You can't expect success if you aren't going live frequently. What does frequently mean? I don't know. It depends on what your goals are and how much, you want, how fast you want to grow. The more you go live, the faster you're going to grow. Just a fact, because the more you're on here going live, the more people are going to see you, the more you're going to be able to grow. This app is all about going live. The other things that you can do, like sell out of your marketplace, are a huge secondary to going live. This app is about live auctions. So, you've got to go live. And then number three is list things. People need to see that you actually have stuff you're going to sell, and they need to see what it is. And it needs to be something people want to buy, that they're excited about coming into your auctions for. And you may say, well, I see so and so who gets hundreds of people in their show. They don't list anything. Yeah, because they used to. And now that they're well established and people know they're going to bring the goods, they don't have to as much. Although I think my personal opinion is they're shooting themselves in the foot by not listing more because they could even be doing more. So listings are very important. Listings also help with the algorithms. Quality listings help with the algorithms. Listen to that show. Okay. Number four, stay live for at least 1 to 3 hours. If you go on for 15 minutes and it's dead and you give up and go off, you're never going to get anywhere. Never. Because that's just not how the algorithms work. You need to be on there long enough for people to start finding you. And then once they find you, then you've got to be on longer to stay longer so that they can start interacting with you and start buying. So it's when you're first new, you've got to stay live long enough for people to find you. Whatnot, I don't know if they're still doing it, but they were boosting new sellers first show. I don't know if they still are. I don't know what the criteria is, but if they are, that will help a little bit. But then it's going to nosedive after that. So you've got to stay on long enough for people to find you. We just got raided by Ohio Nurse. Thank you so much for the raid. How are you today? And thank you so much. Everybody, please give Ohio Nurse a follow. Let me get you pinned in chat. And hope you're having a wonderful day. Here we go. Ohio Nurse pinned in chat. Please give her a follow. You had a crafting show. Awesome. What were you making? Tell us, tell us. We're talking about how to get more people in your shows. Christmas gift tags. Awesome. What a good idea. So very cool. Well, thanks for rating us and taking that step. So, number, let's see, number 5. Are sew-alongs a good idea to help with going live and building followers for selling shows? Yes. But you always do need to sell something. But if you do a craft along like that, always have items in your bin. And I would highly suggest selling kits. And maybe you can sell kits in one show and then they get their kit and join you live to make it. Just decide what's going to work best. But you always have to have something for sale. Just, have stuff in your buy it now or sell the kits or the supplies for people to make what you're demonstrating. And yes, don't expect a huge audience in those shows, but do expect that people will come in and it's a more laid back show that helps you just kind of, people don't feel as pressured to buy. They just like to come and see what you're doing and and visit and ooh and ah over the awesome thing you're doing, and maybe they want to make it, maybe they don't. But it's a good way to, just do a kind of a more community minded show, get some followers, maybe sell a few kits and promote your upcoming shows. Absolutely. Let's see. Let's see. I'm not sure what Chevron is saying. Draz is. I don't. You'll have to restate that, Chevron. I'm not sure what you were saying. All right. So definitely do shows like that. Okay. So we were on number 5. Before you ever go live, and if you've gone live and things aren't working well, maybe try this again. Have a show that you schedule as a private show. So when you schedule it, down at the very bottom, there's a place where you can indicate that it's a private show. And then invite just the few people you need, someone, a friend, a family member, a few people, that trusted people, to come to that show and give you feedback. Maybe you didn't even realize that your internet connection is so terrible that people aren't sticking around because when they come in, they can't hear, can't see, it's pixelating. And, you were, it was so bad that you don't even, nobody's sticking around. Maybe they can't hear you. Maybe they can't see your stuff. I don't know. Did you get all that ironed out before you started going live? If not, maybe revisit that to make sure there's not something simple like that. Maybe sometimes internet connections aren't simple, but maybe you need to get, a new internet service because yours just isn't working, because it does take a lot of bandwidth to go live. So figure that out because maybe that's the issue. Okay. And then number 6, run your items. One of the things that Colleen talked about in that interview is that the algorithms favor shows where things are being run, where auctions are being run, and then obviously people are bidding and buying. If you never run your items, legit, nobody can buy them. You should always be running items because that's how people at some point are going to be like, that's a really good deal. I want that. And then they bid. And then someone else is like, oh, they bid on that. That is a really good deal. I want it too. Boom, 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 boom. That's how it works. So you've got to run your items. Don't just show. If you pick it up If you show it, you run it. Good morning, Christine. How are you today? Welcome in. All right. And then number 7 is raid. I'm just going off my top 10 tips list. Always raid when you finish. Rating gets your name out there. Rating shows you're part of a community. Rating gets you some notice. People are like, oh, who's that? What were they doing? What's their show? They click on you. They look to see what you sell. When your next show is, they bookmark you if they're interested. Always raid. Okay. Number 8, raid trains. Look for and sign up for raid trains. How do you find them? It's kind of organic, but you can also go and, there's some specific people and specific groups that do regular raid trains. You just ask to participate. You have to be bold and ask. You have to go look and find. There's a couple of Facebook groups that are dedicated to whatnot raid trains. You just go into the For You page and type in the words raid train and reach out to the people who organize certain raid trains. Just, be proactive at looking for opportunities to join raid trains. It's not too difficult to find some to be part of. And raid trains are not about getting a ton of sales. Raid trains are about getting out there, networking, getting exposure to buyers that didn't know you existed. So, and some are better than others. Try and look for ones that you can see that they've got a healthy audience and that it looks fun and inviting and et cetera, et cetera. Okay. It took you 3 shows before you learned how to raid. Yeah. Yeah, it's not hard to raid. You just have to know where it is. If you know how to end your show, it's right there with end instead of ending you raid. So, and you can even let it choose for you. You don't have to know who you're going to raid. It can choose someone for you. Although I prefer to know who I'm raiding because, your raid should be somewhat strategic so that you are, going into someone that will, you know, even care that you rated. So, all right. And then number 9, get help. Make sure you use the whatnot, the official whatnot things that are available to help you. They have a ton of tutorials. They have the whole Seller Academy with all kinds of resources and help for you. You can use help.whatnot.com and you can attend seller chat shows like this. Um, Find and use moderators. Moderators can help you a lot when you're new. Welcome in, Faye West and Grandma Sue and Meg. And so happy crafting. How are you? Welcome in. All right. So yeah, I mean, just if you're not actively looking for ways to get help, then there's not a whole lot everybody can do to help you because you're not actively looking. Always look for ways to find out about new ways to do things, figure out the app. You don't know how to use it if you're tech. If you have if you don't consider yourself a tech person and you need help just even basic navigating the app, get help. Get help. Don't be afraid to reach out and get help. Yeah, I'm working on it. Got to get a few pounds off after Thanksgiving eating, right? All right, and then number 10. Number 10 is engage. Figure out ways to be more engaging. And that's different for everybody. Everybody has a different personality, everybody has different ways of doing things. Figure out what works for you And keep in mind that everybody has a different vibe. People are attracted to the shows and want to stay in the shows where they have, a like-minded seller. I click with this seller. They're fun. I enjoy their shows. We have things in common. And how do you do that? Well, you got to share a little bit about yourself first of all, in an authentic, natural way. Share about yourselves, just talk, figure out what you have to do, but be authentic. Yes, be authentic. People can tell if you're, trying to put on a one act play and you're not genuinely sharing who you are and what you're about. Okay. Um, yeah, so those are all the things. And then another homework that I always tell people to do is this, and it will give you a lot of insight. So get a piece of paper and a pencil, old fashioned way. Go and watch 10 shows you've never been in before, ever, ever. And then write down, have two columns. One column is why I wanted to stay, another column is why I wanted to leave. And watch long enough that you can fairly write down at least one or two things in each column. Maybe they only are doing things that you want, that have you want to stay. Maybe they're only doing things that make it so you want to leave, whatever. Write it down. Do that for 10 different shows. Maybe if you want to remember, write their username, and you can check back to see if it's still that way. But write it down and then put your buyer hat on. From a buyer's perspective, why did I want to stay? Why did I want to leave? And you're going to get some huge insights into why people stay or leave in certain shows and what you need to do differently. Okay. And then after you've done that, I know this is hard, but go watch yourself too from a buyer perspective. So just go to your past shows and just view one of your past shows and kind of critique yourself, right? Why did I want to stay? Why did I want to leave? Put your buyer hat on, critique yourself and then do things to make it better, you know? And I know there's certain things you can't change. You can't change your voice really, you can't change, drastically, you can't change your personality so much, but you can, if you feel like you have some quirks about your voice or something, you can try to change a few things. I'm just saying you can't like massively, especially if you have like an accent or a higher pitched voice or a lower voice or whatever, within reason. Obviously, you can't change things like that. But, there's things you can figure out. So, someone said you sound like Roseanne. Well, that's not a bad thing, right? Necessarily, because she has a voice that obviously translated over into acting. So that's probably a good thing, right? Let's see, just something about says I'm trying to test my internet connection in a new space. Is there a way to create a private show but still invite people to give you feedback? Yeah. So when you create your show, just create it private and then share it like you would normally. Share the link to the people you want to invite. So yeah, when you that it's at the very bottom when you create the show, there's a place for you to click. The default is for it to be a public show, but you can click private to make it a private show. You used to you used to be able to not watch and would mute the videos. That's funny. Yeah. Endless says, I like watching in other categories than the one I sell in. Yes, and you should. Because that you can get some ideas and things that you wouldn't have thought about normally because you normally watch mostly in your category. Go outside your category for some new ideas for sure. Yeah. And then another thought is after you've done all that, also go to your very favorite shows and write down the things that you maybe hadn't really thought about. Why do I like this show so much? What is it about these shows that make me want to be here? And you might be surprised what you write down. Because maybe it's not so much, what they have. Maybe it's more just about the person. Maybe it's you like the atmosphere. Maybe it just resonates with you because they're like-minded. I don't know. Figure that out, and then after you've done all that too, it's important to do what you think you can do and then use the good ideas to improve yourself, but don't be careful about too much comparison. Because, like I said, there's only so much you can change about you. What you can change are how organized you are, what kind of products you pick up to sell. Um, the atmosphere, is the lighting good? Can they hear you? Do you have your stuff laid out in a nice way? Those other things, focus more on what you can change and don't beat yourself up over things you can't change. Does that make sense? All right, I'm going to end the poll. It looks like we do have some people who need help with shipping, so I'm going to address that briefly. And then the people who selected other, put in the chat other, and then type what your big concern is with a question mark, so that if there's something I can, guide you towards, I can. So I'm going to end the poll. Thanks everyone for joining and sharing your insights there. Okay. So yeah, just put in chat and let me change to where I can see just questions. All right, let's see. Do you understand the rules for mystery bags and boxes? I'm a little confused on it now. It's different than before. Yes. And I honestly would say don't do them. Do the kind where they can pick and then you just show. Because if you're showing what's in there and it's not really a mystery, it's still a little bit fun to, have someone pick the bag before you run it, and then as you run it you show it, if that makes sense. Then it's not a true mystery. I would say and anytime you do a true mystery, or they don't call it that anymore, surprise set show, you have to schedule your show as a surprise set versus auction. And I just honestly wouldn't do it right now. It's not being favored. It's kind of confusing. Nobody knows how to do it exactly. Yeah, that's my feedback on that. How do you get over the fear of starting? Honestly, it's kind of like anything else in life. You just do it. Just make yourself do it. It's kind of like, a kid learning how to swim. You just got to do it. Riding a bike, you just got to do it. So whatever you've got to do to make yourself just go live. And that nervous energy that you get, I mean, I still get that, and I've been doing it for a lot longer than most people. And I still get that, the jitters of going live. It's just, putting yourself out there is it's human nature to be afraid, to look stupid, fail, all those things we're afraid of, right? So you just have to force yourself to do it. And, there's really not anything else anyone else can do to make you do it. You've got to make it happen, you know? I mean, if there's someone who has severe anxiety or other, true mental conditions over that, you need to go get therapy. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the basics. We all get a little bit nervous to go live for all those reasons, right? So just do it. Just press the button, go live, don't overthink it. And that's another problem is too many of us overthink it. Get outside of your head and just push go live and just do it. Pickle pie sews. My first show is Saturday. What is the best way to find a moderator? Just ask someone. So if you've been in other people's shows and we have a couple of people in fabric and crafting that love to moderate, like Andy, who else? Start naming people for her, just ask. But, pick someone that you've seen around that you can trust that they'll, do it for you and do a good job. Um, just ask. Find someone that that you've been in with. Yeah, story of home. So yeah. And then Grandma Sue I want to learn how to be a mod. No plans on being a seller, just want to help sellers out. Well, there you go. So Grandma Sue, go to help.whatnot.com, type in moderator and read the article about moderating. And then it shows you the tools that moderators are given to use during shows because you have a little bit of power. So you can kick people out of the show. You can block people. Don't ever block someone if you're moderating unless you've asked the seller if you want them to be blocked. You can do hidden messages to the seller and you can announce. So go read the article, learn how to do it, and then offer your services. So, yeah, but you need to be out there. People need to know who you are. People need to know that they can trust you. And when you moderate, you need to be there and present and, giving, watching for things, but also making announcements, but also not taking over someone's show. So be careful as a moderator not to be so active in the chat that it's kind of taking over the show. That makes sense. Okay. Yes, kind, professional, kind of neutral. You're not there to, sell. You're there to help the seller. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let me get out of just questions so I can see everyone's comments. You are welcome. Yes, being a moderator can be a lot of fun, and it is a really good way, if you are thinking about selling and you're taking your time and doing some research, offer to moderate for a while because it does help you build a following and people start to trust and know who you are. And then when you do sell, you kind of have a natural built in following already because people have seen you moderating in other people's shows. So it's a good way to get your name out there for sure. All right, let's see. Any others that had some that they marked in the poll that they had another, concern, number one concern? If you have something else that you was your number one concern, I want to know what it is. So put it in chat with a question mark so it shows up bold so we can address it. So yeah. Are you able to bulk edit packages? No. So you mean on the back end, right? On the shipping end, bulk edit packages? No, there's no way to bulk edit packages. Sadly. Just trying to think if there's anything you can do. Yeah, not that I know of anything that you could do in bulk on the shipping end. So you can bulk edit listings with, with certain types of info in your inventory, but nothing that I know of you can bulk edit packages. Let's see. The setting sticks. So which setting are you trying to do? How do we get following for miscellaneous stuff? So Dory, are you talking about like shows that aren't like a specific category? Is that what you mean? Yeah, so you still are choosing a category though, right? All right, so happy. Yes, I will co-host you and you can show us what you're talking about.
Hey y'all. So I'm talking about, so right here, let's say you select, oh, well, goodness, hang on a second. Sorry, my Wi-Fi wasn't on. Okay, let me fix that. That was from last night where it was still connected. Okay, so
you're in Seller Hub shipping.
Yes. So let's say you select multiple packages, okay? Over on the bulk actions, you can hit edit ship information. And a lot of times what I want to do when I do that is I want them all to be padded flat rates, for example. But when you hit update labels, it only updates the first package of whichever ones you selected. It doesn't actually update them all, which is super frustrating. I just didn't know if you knew a way that it actually worked. Like it doesn't actually take that setting when you try to use it. But
show me again where you found that.
Okay, so here's your full shipping screen. So if you select multiple packages and then on this side your little bulk actions pops up, the window on the side, the very top item is edit shipping information, and then it makes it seem like this is bulk edit, right? And most of the time what I'm wanting to do when I do this is change all of them to like padded flat rate or whatever. But if you hit update labels, it actually only updates the first out of however many you checked. And so I was asking you if you knew how to make that actually take.
I don't think that setting was ever intended for that. I think it's only... Sorry, there's probably feedback. I think it's only for like you bulk drop off bulk.
I don't know what else that would be for,
or bundling.
Yeah,
where you selected two.
But see, look, it says these actions apply to all selected shipments. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that's what it was for. I thought maybe it was like an Android versus iPhone issue, but this is on the laptop, so that's all. I just didn't know. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I can I just took a screenshot, so I'll remember, and I will ask.
Okay.
I agree with the way that's worded. That makes it seem like you should be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess it's like feedback, so I'll let you let me go.
All right. 1 second. Let me find the co-host here.
I'm looking too. Maybe you can hit my name.
I know,
I know, I'm trying to find you in chat.
I just put a new comment.
There we go. Yeah, when you co-host someone, you just tap their name, allow to co-host. Then you've got to tap their name again and hit end co-host. And I was trying to find her in chat so I could do it. All right, let's see. So Dory Door says, I haven't started yet studying, want to do it right. And let me just review what you asked again before. So Dory, I think your other one wasn't in bold. So I'd have to find it back in chat. So yeah, my only concern about being able to bulk edit like that is, I mean, I guess it would work if you could select just certain shipments that you want to go in that type of package. But you would have already, it seems kind of like you would have already had to go through and identify those. So does that really save you any more time? I'm trying to picture, how that actually saves you any time versus just opening each one and selecting the package, especially if you're doing flat rate. But if you did a special show and all those are going to fit in a flat rate padded or whatever, I guess that makes sense. So let's see, there's this bug with co-host. Whoever is the host gets a feedback loop. Yeah, I needed to silence it on the other phone and I just didn't want to take the time to do that. Let's see, or know what category to choose when mixed items. So yeah, so Dory, it's important that you pick a category that makes the most sense for what you're selling. So for example, you say mixed, but where are you getting the items? So there's categories for storage units, there's categories for estate sales, there's categories for thrift, there's categories for, yard sale, estate sale. So, that would kind of then to help what category works. Because if you're just selling mixed items, you want people to come because it's, fun estate sale finds or fun thrift finds or fun, so you kind of have to pick the one that makes the most sense. Otherwise, it's better to sort your stuff into specific categories and have a book show, have a fabric show, have a ephemera show or whatever, and put it in the category that your stuff makes sense. Because if it's too mixed up and you don't have a good category, it is going to be hard for people to find you because there's no, in the generic categories like and whatnot or community are going to get you nowhere because there's just not enough of a following and enough people that are going to notice it in the search if you don't have it in a more specific category. And a lot of times I see new sellers, that's one of their big mistakes is they put it in a generic category thinking that's better because it's not as competitive. Big mistake. You need it to be in the category that best represents what you're selling because that's how the algorithms work. Because people won't even see it if they don't follow the and whatnot category. Okay, it's got to be in as best specific category as you can narrow it down to. And if you have a lot of stuff, maybe sort it so that you do a show that is this, another show that is that, so that it kind of, because otherwise you get nobody. Okay. Let's see. For example, if I run a show that's all half yards, I know how. Oh, I see what you're saying. How many fit in an envelope so I could use the item count and select all packages. And so what I would do for that, honestly, is do a custom shipping profile that you've already got it set for padded, because you can do that on a custom shipping profile. You can say padded, and then boom, they all are just set that way to already be in that package. But then you, of course, you have to be careful, because if someone buys more, then you're going to have to, have that unbundled. But yeah, I'll ask. So I've got that screenshotted and I'll ask. Are you allowed specific time, or could run as long as you can stay live as long as you want, baby. There are people that have done marathon shows and been live for like 2 days. I don't know. They switch off sellers or take pee breaks, and they're on forever. So yeah, whenever and as long as you want. There's no limit. Yep. Yeah, Joe Hollywood did a 48-hour show. Yep. Yeah, I don't know how some of them do it. I'm too old. And I don't have a big crew that I could have, come and sub for me for an hour or so while I go eat or go sleep for a minute or whatever. But yeah, there are definitely some bigger sellers that do stuff like that, and it's a lot of fun. And then you have to ship it. That's the other thing. I don't know how they do it. So, because yeah, if you do shows like that 48 hours in a row, then you're going to be shipping for the next 5 days, unless you have a huge crew to make it happen, right? All right, let's see. Let's see. The threaded chapter, if you did that, would it count towards an adjustment when you're just changing it to flat rate? The only time you use an adjustment is if you're going outside of the cost that it normally was. So like if you change something if you turn flat rate off and use priority, as long as it's still within the same weight category, it's going to be fine. It's not going to use an adjustment. It's just when you're, changing it and going outside of. So if you're changing from flat rate to ground advantage and it ended up being over 5 pounds, there'll be a charge, an additional charge. And so then that uses one of your adjustments. So yeah, it's only when you go outside. So like if I have something that's under 5 pounds and it just doesn't quite fit in a flat rate box, then I can turn flat rate off and just use a different box, and it can just go priority, but it's still within the under 5 pounds. So it doesn't ding me on an adjustment. So hope that makes sense. Yeah. All right. I wanted to address shipping really quick for those of you that put that shipping is your biggest concern. Here is my choosing basic shipping settings guide. And if you use that, so just tap the picture, tap it again, make it big, take a screenshot. When you're new, the thing that you need to understand is that shipping on Whatnot is based around what you sell. It just is. Because unlike other platforms where usually people buy a onesie twosie from you, on Whatnot, they can come and buy one item or they can come in and buy 30 items. And so it's based on what you sell. You need to kind of figure out what's going to work for you as a new seller. And then once you've kind of figured out which settings are going to work best for you based on what you sell, then you also need to think about volume and the amount of money you're making. Because if you get to a point where you're selling enough and you're making enough money, even if you're having to do a shipping rate that's, the buyer has to pay all shipping, you want to, if at all possible, get to a point where you can offer some kind of reduced shipping. Reduced shipping is where it's at for getting people to come to your shows, because people want reduced shipping. They don't want to pay a ton of money to get stuff shipped to them. It's just a mindset. We all have it. Everybody wants free or reduced shipping. And so, in order to get traction on this app, you have to get to a point where you can offer some kind of free or reduced shipping. It doesn't have to be free. Very few sellers do free shipping all the time. It's just not cost effective as a seller. It eats too much of your profit. But some kind of reduced shipping. Okay. And I'll be honest with you, it often is a determinant for what people even sell, because a lot of sellers get really discouraged about selling larger, bulkier, fragile, hard to ship items, because it just gets to a point where people don't want to pay the shipping. And the post office, let's face it, is not great about taking good care of items that are big, bulky, and fragile. And so really think through what you're selling and make sure it makes sense. And you may choose not to sell certain items on this app. Just a fact. 921 is the default amount for shipping. Where does that figure come from? It is the rate that Whatnot negotiated in a contract for packages that weigh 1 to 5 pounds. And then they are either shipped flat rate or priority. And then if it's over 5 pounds and you still have flat rate turned on, then it still doesn't charge any more than $9.21 to the seller if you have it set that way, or to the buyer, I mean, if you have it set that way. And then on the back end, as the seller, depending on how you ship it, the most it charges you is $9.21. And then if you choose to use your adjustments or choose to sell things that have to be shipped, with additional weight or girth, then you're willing to pay the extra shipping. So it just depends on how you have it set. Okay. So that's just the rate that they negotiated. And it's a really good rate. If you compare out there to the rest of the world, the rest of the selling apps, $9.21 for a large flat rate box full or a priority box full of stuff is a really good rate. So make sure people know that, because people gripe about shipping and say, well, go compare. Other than Amazon Prime free shipping, which you pay for, right? You pay to be a Prime member. So other than that, it's a really good shipping rate. So make sure people know that. And then, you need to figure that out as far as what you sell. So use this guide, screenshot it, and then you can go watch my video on YouTube. My YouTube account is in the show notes. It's in the second paragraph at Draz on Whatnot, right there with the little talking head. Go to YouTube and go to my lives on my YouTube channel and find the show that's titled Don't Sink Your Shipping. So let me just show you that really quick. So go to YouTube and type in ampersand Draz on Whatnot. So go to YouTube, type in the ampersand, because it's easier to find if you just type in the direct address. So Draz on Whatnot. And it will be, if you type it in that way, it's that account right there with my same logo. And then go to the lives. So go to the lives. And then you're going to scroll down through the lives and look at the titles while you're scrolling and find the one that has a little ship, like a boat ship emoji on it. Here we go. Don't sink your shipping right here. And watch that video. And use that little guide that I just gave you to watch with that show. And you'll be able to kind of figure out what settings are going to work best for you as a new seller. And then once you get established and you know how shipping works, you can manipulate that a little bit to figure out, if you can offer mostly flat rate, or if you can afford to, offer reduced shipping and use your adjustments and and then pay a little bit of people's shipping. It just depends on how much you're selling, how much, you can afford to do, because reduced shipping really does make a huge difference, in people wanting to come to your shows. There are people who in the For You page, did you know that people can actually filter for reduced shipping? See here, filters, reduced shipping. There are people who come into the app that don't even see shows that don't offer reduced shipping because they've filtered it. Okay, so when you're on the For You page, if people are looking for shows that have reduced shipping banners, you want that on your banner right there. Okay, that's interesting. I just scrolled through, I don't know what it's showing me. Oh, I've got something in there, but let me go to the home page here For You and see how there are shows that don't have reduced shipping on them. It is going to affect, the amount of people coming to your shows. So, good morning, Bougie Bee. How are you? Welcome in. So, yes, the cost of the items, just remember that if you sell something for $1, you're going to make 30 cents or 33 cents, I think, or something. It just depends on the tax, but you're going to make almost nothing. So, this is a big mistake too that sellers make. They see big sellers doing dollar starts. Dollar starts are just a tool to make a show more fun and exciting and watch the bids, right? It's not, there's never was an intention for people to sell things for $1. It's just a way to make things fun. But you can't do dollar starts when you're new if you don't have a big audience to bid things up. Start your bid at the price you're willing to sell it at, period. And be realistic about it. Make sure you've done your research. Make sure your starting bid is real. Don't, because sometimes what it's worth to you is not realistic. Don't sell it if you're not willing to sell it for a reasonable price, right? So sell it at a good, reasonable price that you've researched and made sure that makes sense, but dollar starts are only for sellers who have the audience to be able to do it. And even sellers who have a big audience, for whatever reason, they show something and, the chat's distracted, or nobody really wants that color or whatever, and someone gets a steal for $1 every once in a while. And that's part of the fun. And they have a big enough audience that if they sell a item for $1 every once in a while, oh well, right? But you can't afford to do that as a new seller. That's dumb. You're not making any money. Now, there are sellers who have come on the app and just done dollar starts from day one. They were willing to take a loss for a certain amount of time to give them the trajectory to build up to a point. They were willing because there's a lot. I mean, it's a business model. A lot of new businesses take a loss for a certain amount of time just to get to build their business up quickly. That makes sense. Okay. It's a strategy. Most people, it doesn't work for them. Okay. So Jackie says, I was doing the reduced shipping cap at 921, but then I lost half my auction to shipping charges. Yeah. So that tells me that what you were selling doesn't work with flat rate. So you have to be careful about, what you're selling and how you have your shipping settings set. And the other thing too is if you're offering reduced shipping, if you're doing the buyer pays max 921, your shipping settings should be set at flat rate, 1 to 5 pounds, flat rate, 5 pounds and over, flat rate. Why? Because the most you want to pay as the seller is 921 too. You don't want to get charged the higher ground advantage rate on the back end. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get to be able to charge, or be able to use flat rate, but you only got charged 921 if you're going to pay part of their shipping. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's see. Smiling up, I asked because my friend who told me about Whatnot said that dollar said that amount was high. I don't do dollar starts. What weight exceeds the 921? Well, it exceeds 921 when you have the 5 pounds and over set at ground advantage or priority. And if you have it buyer pays max 921, it's going to start charging you as the seller more than 921 if you have priority or ground advantage turned on in your shipping settings for 5 pounds and over. Because it just calculates what you've got in there in your shipping settings. So when you sell an item, whatever weight you're selling that item under, it calculates the shipping based on that weight. And then it looks at the shipping settings you have in there. And if that item, or if the accumulation of their items gets to a certain weight, and you have your shipping settings for 5 pounds and over set for priority or ground advantage, then it's going to start charging the higher priority or ground advantage rate instead of the flat rate. So if you want to use buyer pays max 921, have your shipping settings set for 921 because at the flat rate in both 1 to 5 pounds and 5 pounds and over, so that the most it charges you initially is also 921, and then on the back end, if they bought more and you have to unbundle it, then it's only doing that incremental charge above the 921 instead of already charging you higher. Does that make sense? Okay. So yeah, those of you that need help with shipping, make sure you screenshot this choosing basic shipping settings and go watch that live that was in my YouTube called Don't Sink Your Shipping. Okay. Let's see. And yes, I use almost exclusively the free boxes from the Postal Service. I use the flat rate ones, and then occasionally I use the ones that are priority but not flat rate, because there's quite a few that size that are in different sizes than the flat rates that you can use for priority. And then on the occasions where someone buys way too much, won't fit in any of those, I just use my own packaging. So boxes that I upcycle everything. So I get boxes from, just free boxes that people are giving away or out of the garbage or whatever. So I don't buy boxes. Let's see, it can be over 5 pounds. 2 flat rate will ship up to 70. Yes. That's why flat rate is beautiful if you can fit your stuff in flat rate, because it can weigh up to 70 pounds. So, yep. Yes, free boxes are only for priority. So priority flat rate or regular priority, and make sure you know the difference, because they're all marked priority. They're all, they all have the post office labeling for priority, but there are some that say flat rate and some that don't. If your label says flat rate, your box needs to be flat rate. If your label just says priority, it can be one of those other priority packages. And then if your label says ground advantage, it shouldn't be on a priority box, because that's not the shipping category you paid for. So make sure you know. And that video, don't sink your shipping. I show you all the boxes. We talk about it, and you can, so I'm in real life showing you all the boxes and how to do it. So yes, go watch that. How much percent does Whatnot take of sales, Dory? So they take 8% commission, and then you also have to pay a transaction fee. So there's a transaction fee of 30 cents per transaction, and then 2.9% for the, wait, I probably said that wrong. 2.9 is the transaction fee, and then 30 cent. No, what is the other word called for it? Anyway, there's 8% commission, 2.9% transaction, and 30-cent transaction. But I'm not using the right word. One is something and one is the other. What equipment do you need for shipping? For shipping, you need the packaging, you need a label printer, you need a laptop or a PC, in my opinion. That you can print labels from your mobile device. I don't recommend it because you can't really change the packaging options. So all you can do is print the label. Yes, you need a scale. You need a scale before shipping, though, because you should be weighing your stuff before you list it. Yeah, it's about 13% altogether. To the Tyvek envelope and unchecked flat rate. Yeah, if you want to use the Tyvek envelope, it's not a flat rate, it's a priority. So you uncheck flat rate and just change the dimensions and the weight to what it exactly is. They're just saying that when you add it all up, it comes out to about 13% total. Yeah. And compared to most other platforms, that is also one of the best rates out there. eBay takes about 18% right off the top. Some of the other ones are up there too. So yeah, all the fees added up. Yep. Let's see, way lower than pretty much everywhere else. Yep. Let's see, I recommend that you get a scale that has a display that is detachable. Sometimes I have problem reading my display on my scale. Yeah, that's true. If you do a lot of bigger boxes, when you put the box on there, it hides the weight. Or you have to put it in some other kind of, elevate it up by putting another box on there. So yeah, it's not a bad idea if you're doing packaging in bigger boxes, get one of those scales that has a, where the display is detached, and you can have it, further out so that you can see what it weighs. Yeah. Yes, commercial pricing for Ground Advantage is what Whatnot uses. And then the flat rate is the negotiated rate. So I have another document in here that is a chart. Let me pin it. This is the United States Postal Service commercial pricing chart. So you look at that and it's like, it makes sense when you look at this why someone who's in your show tells you, oh, well, it's, $420 for me. And someone else is, oh, it's $485 for me, because it's zones. So the first 1 to 4 ounces, no matter who they are or where they live in the United States, there's a base rate. There's a base rate for that first order. And if you're using 1 to 4 ounce or less, for weight on the first item you run, one person the rate is $420, one person the rate is $485. Just depends on how far away from you they live, what zone they're in, and what zone you're in. Okay. So I have that pinned if you want to look at that. Helps it make more sense. Okay. Let's see. I set a big bowl on my scale, then zeroed out and put the big box on so I could see the weight. The bowl bottom doesn't cover the numbers. Yeah, that works. So if you have a scale that you can't see, and then you just know the weight of the bowl and just subtract it out when you figure out your weight. Yep. Bundling is good, one price. Yes. It's just, it is kind of a new mentality. If you've resold on other platforms, you have to wrap your head around the fact that you don't know what people are going to buy. And so you've got to set your shipping settings to the best possible, outcome that you can figure out, because you can have customers who buy one item and you can have customers who buy 30 or more. You just don't know from any show to the next. So you've got to have it set so that you're going to be able to handle both scenarios. Okay. And I will caution you, be careful about selling everything under one weight. If you have a lot of people only buying one item and you sell heavy items under a lower weight and they only buy one, you're going to either have to take an adjustment, or you're going to end up getting things happening like people getting packages postage due. You're going to get dinged on the back end when Whatnot starts auditing or the Postal Service starts auditing. You cannot send packages at the wrong weight. Make sure you're sending them at the correct weight. Don't just print the label. If it's, if you sold it underweight, you need to add. Now, if it's still under 15 ounces, just add the extra ounces. It won't use one of your adjustments. Just add the extra ounces. When it goes over a pound, if you sold it underweight and it goes over a pound, you need to use one of your adjustments or pay the extra for it to go correct. Don't sell things underweight. It will catch up to you. Okay. So if you have heavier stuff and you sell everything under one weight, you're going to have to use those adjustments, because it is going to catch up to you. I will tell you, on another platform, the Postal Service did some massive audits. They were keeping track of all those packages going through that they would go ahead and send, but then they were keeping track. And on the back end, they charged back to the shipping, the third-party shipping, all those overweight packages. And there were sellers who got charged thousands thousands of dollars, and the platform just withheld their pay until it was paid off. Okay. So don't send things underweight and think you're going to get away with it. You can get away with it sometimes, it'll go through, but they are tracking it. Don't assume that it's not getting tracked or not getting noticed. Okay. So be careful about sending things, adjust it. If you sold it underweight and it's over, adjust it, take the hit. Don't take it later in the thousands of dollars for the millions of packages that went through that way. You are welcome. You are welcome. Thanks for being here, Smiley. So, yeah. Don't risk it. Don't risk it. You can order them on the website. Yes. So just create an account at the Postal Service website, and you can order all of the flat rate and priority packages for free. They will bring them to your door. And you can also usually get them in most post office lobbies, but there are certain, they usually have all the flat rates except for the padded. And they sometimes have some of the other priority ones, but mainly they just have the flat rate, the three or four sizes of flat rate. And then you need to order the paddeds, and you need to order any of the other priority boxes you want to use on the website. So the 12 by 12 by 12 and the 12 by 12 by 6 it's just what is, that is the default size that they put in there because that is the maximum girth of a package allowed under that category. You need to be changing those if you're not using flat rate. So if you're using priority or ground advantage, change the 12 by 12 by 12 to something that is actually the size of your package. So you have a box that is 13 by 11 by 6. That's what it should be. Change it. Okay. 12 by 12 by 12 is just the max girth allowed in that category. Okay. So you need to change it if you're not using flat rate. When you're using flat rate, you just select the box size from the drop down menu. So if you're using flat rate and you're sending it in a medium top load, you just select medium top load off the drop down. You don't have to change the size or the weight because it already populates the size, and weight doesn't matter up to 70 pounds. Okay. But if you're using priority or ground advantage, you need to change the dimensions. And you need to be careful about dimensions for larger items because on ground advantage, the max girth is 130 inches. So if you have a box and you measure it, and when you times those three numbers together, it's more than 130 inches, it's too big. And you're going to get charged the extra shipping, and it is going to be astronomical. So don't sell big, bulky, hard to ship items on Whatnot. Just don't do it. Okay. It's not worth it. Exactly. It's not worth it. And if you have singular items, so you have a single item that normally would be fine to sell by itself, but if they start buying a bunch of them, you're going to get screwed. Do custom shipping profiles and don't do buyer pays max 921 shipping. You can't afford to in a show where you sell larger items. Okay. So set your shipping in that show to custom shipping profiles. I'm selling these big glass vases. Each one ships separately. If you want them, you're going to pay separate shipping per item. Make sure people are clear on that. So Fabric Revival, do a fleece show where you fill a box full of fleece and you just sell it by the box. They pay shipping per box. Okay? Because that's why, it's too hard to afford to pay the shipping. It's not worth it, especially if you don't have a big enough audience, right? So yeah, do a per box show, fill a full box. You can even let them pick if you want to. I want the pink one, the green one, and the yellow one. And you fill a box for them and sell the box, because then they get the whole box. And then you've got to do your shipping settings correctly. You have a custom shipping profile that is for a large flat rate box under 5 pounds. And because weight doesn't matter, remember? And then you do, you don't have buyer pays max 921 turned on. You have it buyer pays all. And then you just tell them right in the notes and in the listings that you pay $9.21 per box. If they want to buy more than one box, that's up to them. Okay, yes. So Field Trip Quilting, you do a custom shipping profile that is called, whatever you want to call it, but it's a large flat rate box. So yeah. Yep. And yeah, turn off that 921 max. Have it set for buyer pays all, and put your flat rate boxes at, if you don't even have to do the weight on them. You can just choose large, whatever, but don't do the weight, because then, you can get messed up a little bit if you do over 5 pounds. So just have it set, custom profiles, have your shipping set for flat rate on 1 to 5 and 5 pounds and over, and just use that custom shipping profile and per box, and it'll work for you. Yep. All right. Yes, this live will be on my YouTube channel. I saw that it was multicasting. So yeah, just turn off that max shipping. So go into that specific show that you've scheduled, because your main shipping settings, you have it set for buyer pays max 921 normally, right? So go into that specific show that you have scheduled that you're going to do those box full show, and change the shipping in that show. So you just do edit show, go down to the shipping, turn it to buyer pays all, and set your shipping settings in there in the specific show, so that you know that they're set up correctly for that show. Yeah. Because once you set your main profile shippings, that will always be the default for every show you schedule. So when you have something you're doing different, open that show, edit show, scroll down to shipping. If you want me to show you really quick. So here's a show that I have scheduled for, a different day. You just open the show, it's not, you don't go live or anything, and you just hit the 3 dots, edit show, and then you scroll down to the shipping settings, drop down the menu, and then shipping costs. See how it's, my default is buyer pays 921, right? So I would go into that and change it to buyer pays all. So just click that box. Okay. And then, if you need to change your other settings there, do that too. I have USPS priority regional boxes from another platform. Can I use those on Whatnot? Probably not. Just take them back to the post office, because we don't do the regional boxes. Yeah. They'll just take them back to the post office and say, here, I'm not going to use those. Let's see. Let me just make sure I didn't miss any other questions, and then I need to wrap it up. And please bookmark my upcoming shows if you find them valuable. And Yes, you can go to the YouTube channel. Most of the time, the multicast is working on YouTube and you can rewatch these seller chats. Okay. Let's see. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything in the questions. Oh, it's only showing me since I went in and out. All right. If I missed something, just repeat it in the chat. Yeah, regional really isn't a thing. I guess there are a few things you can do, like they have special AFPO boxes and a few other things, but yeah, you are so welcome. Oh, thank you, Endless Treasure, Jenny. That was very kind of you. Appreciate the tip. Yeah, or just take them to the recycle bin. Yeah, if you're at the post office, ask them if they want them, and if they don't, yeah. But even then, I bet they would take them and recycle them. So the thing that cracks me up is when you see, because we've bought storage units in the past, and so I sometimes am looking, and you'll see someone's storage unit, and they've packed everything in the free post office boxes. That bugs me, right? It's like they didn't even bother to go find boxes. They went and got boxes from the post office, packed all their crap in it, and it's in a storage unit in post office boxes, which I think is silly because they're small. You can only fit a few things. Yes, it's illegal to when you actually on the post office website, when you order those boxes, you check mark and sign that you are going to use those in a legal way. They're only for shipping in that service, and please don't be a seller who orders the padded envelopes and then uses them for bubble mailers, for bubble wrap. That's illegal. You're using those free packaging for something other than they were intended. So don't do that. And honestly, you never want to get seriously in trouble with the Postal Service because they purposely, from the beginning, made the fines and the jail time for postal fraud very, very, very severe so that people won't do it. And if they ever crack down on stuff like that, you could be in deep doo doo. So don't even risk it. So, yeah. All right. Yes, I get packages all the time where they've used that. Now, if it's obviously used, like you can tell it was been used before, I will do that sometimes. It's been used, you cut it up, you make strips out of it to wrap around little things. No worries. Just mark that it was used. And you can reuse the boxes as well if they're in good shape. I rarely get one that's in good shape that I want to reuse. But yes, you can reuse packaging that was previously used. Just mark it that way. Write on there, upcycled, or use a sticker, upcycled. Because I reuse everything, but don't get them new with the purpose of using them for padding or getting the boxes and then putting it in a bubble mailer or a poly mailer inside. You use, like, I've seen tons of people get those little small flat rate boxes and then they use them for an internal box inside a poly mailer. Bogus. Don't do it. Okay. So yes, reuse them, but don't use them new. Okay. Because that's illegal. That's illegal. Let's see. Any tips on cheap plastic bags for the inner bag? I buy mine in bulk, usually from liquidation sources. But just find usually check both the Zon and the Bay, and you can usually find a good source because if you buy them in bulk, then you're going to get a cheaper rate. And if you buy them on the Zon, put them on subscription because you can get a better rate when it's on subscription. And then check regularly for price changes, because sometimes you'll have it on subscription and think you're getting the best rate, and then you look and someone else has it on sale, so switch it up. So just check regularly. Yeah. I'm kind of weird because we have some really good liquidation sources in Utah, and so I almost always get mine from like damaged pallet sales or liquidation stores or things like that, and I get a better deal than I can get buying them new. So, but yeah, you have to dig around and find them. So, but definitely if you sell fabric, please put it in plastic. There are still a few sellers who aren't doing that, and especially this time of year. Like yesterday, I came home and it snowed, and there were some packages on my porch, and they didn't put it far enough in, and they got wet. And if people hadn't packed it in a way that it wouldn't damage the insides, I would have had some soggy crap, and I wouldn't have been very happy about it. So yes. Yeah, Utah is a really good place for reselling just because we have a lot of resources here. So a lot of fabric, a lot of auction sites, a lot of liquidation. So yeah, we're blessed here with lots of resources. All right, I need to get going. You guys have an amazing day. Make it a great day. Yeah, some packages have been so bad the postmaster sends a letter. I know if you get a box with a letter, it basically means there's probably either nothing in it or it was shredded beyond recognition. Yep, so true. All right, let's go find someone to raid. We're gonna go raid into someone in fabric. Let's go see who we can bless with a raid. Let's see. Oh, I forgot. It's not going to show me very many. Let me go out to the For You page and see who's actually on there. All right, what goes around is on Four Queens. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, let's go right into what goes around. She's a big supporter, and she's only got 4 people in there. So let's go bless her with a raid. And she is very nice. And you guys have an amazing day. And please come to our show later. Appreciate you always. Here we go. What goes around? Thanks, everyone.